The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Nobody said it better than Bobby Wagner. It's a long way to travel to come up short. 6 straight losses, a record of 3-8, and once again, 2 words have entered the Commander's lexicon as we approach Thanksgiving, and those words are draft position. Yep, that's where we are with the season not ending until the first week in January, that this team is now looking at draft position. The only upside is they're not desperate for a quarterback, and there will be teams that will be desperate, and if they're in the top 5 and it looks like they're heading down that road, maybe there'll be somebody who's being willing to trade up and maybe make that happen and make it just a little bit more palatable for a team that has been an enormous disappointment this year. Just comps, and there's millions of them. But, for example, Detroit had 44 points a week ago in Washington. They could have had many, many more. They lost last night to Philadelphia, scoring just 9 points. That's just one indication of how far away Washington is from Philadelphia, not literally, because it's pretty much right up the road. You can get there in like 2.5 hours. But in terms of where the football teams are, they're not even in the same universe. And Washington still has 2 games left to play with them. There is some positive news this morning. It's the best news that I've seen since the end of that 16-13 overtime debacle yesterday. Michael Phillips, based in Richmond, he's covered this team for years. He says, announcement is due tomorrow on whether Commanders-Broncos game gets flexed on November 30th. Even with Jaden back, it's hard to imagine that's a competitive game. Texans, Colts, and Rams-Panthers are probably the 2 to watch in terms of being flexed to Sunday night. The only problem, and I say it's a problem because I hate night games. I do not like them at all. I don't like to go to them, and I don't like to watch them because I go to bed early. I'd much rather this be a 1 o'clock game or maybe even a 4:30 game, but I'm not interested in staying up until midnight on the 30th to watch this. The only thing is the Broncos are really good. Broncos have won 8 straight. They're 9-2. They have a game in between the one that they'll play here, but I mean, I can't imagine that they will be less than about 7 or 8 point favorites in that game. It might even be double digit. Who knows? So it's probably not going to be a competitive game, and I would think that there are some discussions that will go on today about flexing that out of the Sunday night primetime window, and maybe it's amazing to think that they would get flexed, this possibility of getting flexed for Texans-Colts. If you'd have said that a year ago, people would, what are you, nuts? The Colts are so desperate, they've signed Daniel Jones. And here they are. So, anyway, where do you start? Well, you always start with turnovers, and they had 2 of them. Jalen Lane gets hurt. Everybody's hurt on this team. So, Mikey Sanderstill, defensive back, returns a punt for the first time all year, muffs it. And then they go to overtime thanks to what I think. I guess you could debate this, and they didn't really rip him on TV for it, but I thought it was really dumb for Mike McDaniel to go for it on 4th down. I know they've been successful around the goal line all year doing it, but going for it on 4th down against a team that was inept offensively, mostly. I mean, Mariota wasn't bad, but he wasn't great yesterday, and he doesn't have receivers to work with. That they go for it on 4th down opened the door for Washington to win the game with a field goal, which they should have. Matt Gay missing 2 field goals yesterday, one of 51 and the one that would have won it at 56. And in today's game, under 60 should be automatic. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had a guy kick a 68-yarder, and it barely registered. When I was a kid, Tom Dempsey kicked a 63-yarder, and the sports world was shook off of its axis. But nowadays, if you can't kick consistently under 60, then you can't stay. And Matt Gay, who's making $4.5 million a year, he's 9 for 10 inside of 50, and he's made all of his extra points, such as they have been, because they've only had 22 of them in 11 games. But he's 4 for 9 on field goals of 50-plus. And had he made either one of them yesterday, they would have won the game. Certainly the 56-yarder with 15 seconds to go. He did not. So you got the combination of losing the turnover battle, which they did, 2-0, not producing in the red zone. They missed again on that. And Zach Ertz, who's starting to look his age, slipped on turf that he said was not the best. And Marcus Mariota said it was perfectly fine. So you take that for what it's worth. But just too many mistakes. The stats, are not certainly overwhelming in Miami's favor. Washington, 379 yards of offense. Miami had 311. Washington with 172 on the ground. Now, Mariota had, 42 of that on one run. 207 yards passing. Penalties, they've been a problem all year. Not a huge problem yesterday. There were 6 penalties for Washington, 31 yards. Miami had 4 for 39. But you lose the turnover battle, and you have a field goal kicker who's making $4.5 million a year and is supposed to make those field goals. That's why you lose to a bad team. And these were 2 bad teams, make no mistake about it. But Dan Quinn, providing something, I guess, for a travelogue, answers the question from a reporter in Madrid. He spoke with a thick accent. I'm assuming he's based there. Asked the question, and it wasn't phrased this way, but it was sort of like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play?
I hope that Madrid and all of Spain saw the competitive, toughness that the NFL stands for. And, man, the energy that was supplied, by the fans here and by the city, we couldn't have asked for anything more. And so I'm certainly glad they got to see 5 quarters, what that could look like to go all the way into overtime. But that type of battling, that's really what we love about the NFL, and we hope that the fans here and, whether it's just be in Madrid or all of Spain, they get a sense for that, and whatever team they're backing, they just knowing that, this is the fight and this is how it goes down.
Well, the best you could say is that between 2, 3, and 7 teams, it was a competitive game. That's about it. And they got some bonus football, free football, with a few minutes of overtime that they played. But if you saw some of the pictures coming out from reporters during the week, there were street signs and lamp posts with posters of Jaden Daniels hanging on. That's who they wanted to see. Didn't get to see him. Saw Marcus Mariota and saw a team that isn't good and doesn't have any players and missed field goals and turned the ball over and now drops to 3-8. And John Keim is not a hot take guy. He's with ESPN. He's covered this team for 30 years. He's an excellent reporter. And again, is not a guy who jumps up and yells and screams. But listen to how he puts it as to where this team is right now.
You're on life support. They just haven't pulled the plug on the season yet, but that's where they are. And they're, that it's not looking good. So you're calling in hospice care for this season. So just, it's what it is now. And it's the reality of the situation. That's why I say, we know they're an injured team. We know they're a banged up team. We know that there were 10 guys who were starters going into the season who were not playing in this game. That's how bad it's been. But you can still look better. And I think in some areas today, they did look better. I mean, defensively, they were pretty good. It's listen, folks, after the last however many weeks, that's as well as they could have played, given what they had, what they didn't have. And then so you have a team that doesn't have a lot of depth, and now you're testing that depth. And I think what this season is exposed, told us as much as anything, is just how thin they were at certain areas. And I do think that was evident in some cases going into the season. And again, I've talked about this a lot, how they felt like they needed another good offseason, and that's still something you hear. I don't think that I know that they did not feel, and I say this because I talked to people in the offseason about this, that they felt like this was somehow a finished roster, one that is okay, this is your Super Bowl roster, right? Now, when you have Jaden Daniels, things can happen. But I only bring that up to say, they were thin in some areas and they just got exposed. And the areas they were thin at is where they got exposed. And it's just kind of coming back to haunt them.
Yeah, I would use a diet analogy on this. Anyone who has lost weight can understand this. It's like last year they went on a crash diet, and they looked great. And they were at the beach, and they took their shirt off, and they went, wow, look at this. Look at how good they look. And, the quarterback looks so great. And the reality is, anybody who's crash dieted knows that once you go back to your normal eating, you gain it back. And that's where they are now. They're a fat slob of a team with a quarterback who's not playing. And, not all of it his fault. He shouldn't have been in the game against Detroit to blow out his elbow like he did. But what we have here is, a mirage of a team that was in shape last year and is not in shape. And I think they realized that as an organization, that how well everything went last year. Because at the end of the season, Adam Peters was asked about building on it, and kind of the old Bum Phillips, well, this year we knocked on the door, next year we're going to kick the damn door down. And he said every year is different. And he was right. Now, certain things that he did have come back to bite him. If Matt Gay kicks like a kicker who's making $4.5 million a year, 31 years old, been around the league for a long time, and is consistent, they win that game yesterday. But they didn't. If they don't gamble on some older players like Zach Ertz, who is your number one tight end in a league that if you watch it, especially watch a lot of the Red Zone channel, you'll see that tight ends are making more and more of a difference in this league. Travis Kelce at his advanced age is still a major, major factor. And you got to get one of those. Bobby Wagner, bless his heart, Bobby Wagner. He had a great game yesterday, but Bobby Wagner's old. And when you put him in pass coverage, he's a liability. Austin Eckler, they counted heavily on him for a variety of things as their number one back and as a kick returner. He goes out in the second game of the year. He's gone for the year. And as John said, 10 starters who they counted on, not available for a game halfway through the season. Most of them lost for the year. That's not a good formula. And what the feeling was going into last year, not the 2025 season, but 2024, it's going to take a few years to rebuild this team. The drafts were so bad that, there just wasn't enough in the cupboard here to build on. Now they've made some mistakes along the way. I was watching the Red Zone channel yesterday, and Emmanuel Forbes, who was the number one pick, first-round pick by the last regime, is performing very well for the Rams. He's a starting corner and playing well. You whiff on some of those. So, your margin for error was very small after last season, and you can't make the kind of mistakes that they made, and now they're coming back to bite them at 3-8. But I don't think the biggest thing for me, and it should be for you as well, is they got one. Jaden Daniels, if you want to make these RG3 comparisons, be my guest. Not the same thing. He's had some injuries this year, no question about it. And he's got to learn to protect himself better than he has. And in a game that was a blowout, you can't be running like you did to get hurt. Quinn shouldn't have had him in the game, but he shouldn't have been doing that either. But he'll learn, and he's big on studying and learning and working hard at the mental part of the game. He'll get it. It'll be okay. This year's a lost year. It's gone. It's done. But to throw your arms up in the air, and I've seen a lot of this on social media, fire Dan Quinn, fire Adam Peters. No. Stay the course. You made some mistakes this year and move on. Now, before we move on, and I want to get to this referee situation, it's rearing its ugly head as it did again last night in the Detroit-Philadelphia game. Let me just do what we require our goats to do, and I don't mean Tom Brady-like goats. What goat used to mean, where you blow it. And Mikey Sanderstill, who, again, would not have been in the game if Jalen Lane didn't get hurt, but Sanderstill was called on to make a punt return, and he muffed it. And when any player makes a mistake like that, we require him to do a big mea culpa, and he did.
I practice catching every single day. Jalen went down, so just had to be ready, which I was, of course, but like I said, I just got to catch the ball.
Where does it take a little bit? 6 losses in a row, the mentality team, where do you go from here? There's a lot of things that you want to achieve, a lot tougher now.
There's no quitters on this team. We just got to keep on.
Yep, they got 6 games left after the bye. Mariota with the interception in overtime, which set up the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, they covered our first couple options well, and I tried to get backside to Zach. Guy undercut it, made a play. Unfortunate there, and give credit to him. He made a good play.
He didn't say it's on me, although it's kind of implied. But yeah, he did make a good play, but still, you can't make that interception. You can't throw that at that point. And then the kicker. Just throwing this out there. I don't think it's going to happen, and this may be the one team of the 32 where he couldn't come to. He couldn't come to Washington. But Justin Tucker, his suspension is up. It was a 10-game suspension. Everybody in the league now has played at least 10 games. Justin Tucker could be signed. He's a street free agent. He, at one point, was the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL. He held, until this year, the longest field goal ever made, a 66-yarder, to beat the Lions at the gun. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think it's going to happen, and because of the history of this organization and the toxic culture under Dan Snyder, and this is a player who was suspended for allegations of sexual misconduct with massage therapists, this might be the one team he can't come to, but if you're looking for a kicker out there, he's available. Meantime, Matt Gay doing what you're supposed to do as a kicker, and you miss a 51-yarder and a 56-yarder that could have won the game, you take the blame.
It was a dream to come to the stadium and play here. Obviously, things took a turn real quick. Ended on a pretty negative note there. So, feeling pretty upset, pretty down about it. Let the team down here today. Not just one, but 2 kicks today. So the game changes if I make those kicks. So, man, just sucks.
Matt, on that 51-yarder, did it feel as good as the 56-yarder off your foot in your?
Both of those felt really good. Again, I didn't get a warm up. The ball was coming off the foot really, really well today, and for whatever reason, didn't go my way. So I don't know what lesson this is going to teach me, but it's going to teach me something, and I'm going to come out stronger from this, and hopefully have other opportunities to go out there and play.
Hopefully gets opportunities. That's the decision that they're going to have to make. We'll hear from Dan Quinn today. With an off week, do you try? I'm sure they're going to try out kickers no matter what, but do you make a decision to move on from Matt Gay, who now has not 1 but 2 weeks to stew over this?
It's gonna be on my mind a lot this week. I don't know if this comes at a good time for me, because this is just going to another week to stew on it. So, again, the process, everything was good, went through the whole thing, just didn't go in. So that's kind of the life of a kicker. The goods are good and the bads are bad. So I take this on me. This is 100% on me. We win that game if that kick goes in. And this bye week could be really good to spend some time as a family, but I'm going to be stewing on this one for a while.
Yeah, and you may not be stewing on it as a member of the team. We'll find that out. But Dan Quinn is supposed to talk today. And the other thing that's going to be determined over these next couple of weeks, what's the game plan for Jaden Daniels the rest of the way? Do you sit him out the rest of the year, make sure he's perfectly healthy for next year, or do you throw him out there with an elbow that's going to be in a brace and maybe not be as mobile, especially with the left arm, as you'd like him to be? But this is an injury that players come back from, and this is an injury that players play with. We've seen it in the past, and we've seen players play pretty well. So I don't think if he's cleared to play that they're going to just say, now we're shutting him down and we're moving on to next season. I don't see that happening. There's 6 games left in the season. I don't know how many of them are winnable, but I think the development of Jaden Daniels is still important. And with the preseason, basically nothing now. Starting quarterbacks get a few series. He had 1 series this year and didn't throw a pass. I think for his development, I think you got to play him, and I would not be surprised if Dan Quinn says, once he's cleared to play, he's going to play, and whether that's going to be in the game against Denver on the 30th or somewhere in the next 5 after that, I would expect he's going to be back on the field. All right, coming up, officiating. It's a huge subject now in both college football and the NFL, and we saw it last night. And Chris Collinsworth unleashed his fury at the end of the game. We'll hear what he had to say and look at that play as well. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
A couple of more Commanders' thoughts, and we're going to spend a lot more time on the game if you care to subject yourself to that. But it's just, I guess, ironic in a country where the first instinct is to kick the ball rather than throw it. We saw one of the worst kicking performances we've seen in a long time in the NFL where 60-yarders are routine, and Matt Gay missed a 51 and a 56-yarder indoors that could have won the game. As my buddy Tom Lavero said, they could have probably pulled somebody out of the stands in Madrid and had a better chance to make that field goal than making it with Matt Gay. We'll see if he is still on the roster. And also with Mikey Sanderstill having to return the punt yesterday with Jalen Lane injured and Sanderstill injured. Lane injured. I raised the question, okay, if Sanderstill wasn't available to do that, who would have been next? And I guess there's somebody on the roster who's done that before, and I'm sure they have a pecking order on all that. But it reminds me of the famed Body Bag Bowl, which took place in Philadelphia. It's now been 35 years. I think we're pretty close, if we're not already there, to the 35th anniversary. This was the 1990 season where the top quarterbacks got knocked out of the game. Mark Rippon was hurt, so he wasn't available for that game. The starter was, I forget, he pulled off this big comeback against the Lions. He got knocked out of the game early. Stan Humphries came in. He got knocked out, and that's when Brian Mitchell had to play quarterback. That's what that game is so famous for, and it's called the body bag game because they were carting so many players off the field for the Redskins that the Eagles asked over on the sideline, you got enough body bags for these guys? And so Brian Mitchell had to play quarterback. But the thing about that is, if Mitchell wasn't available to play, do you know who would have been the emergency quarterback? It's hard to believe, but this is the case. And if, God forbid, Mitchell suffered an injury, if the Eagles knocked 3 quarterbacks out of that game, it would have been Russ Grimm. Yeah, Russ Grimm played quarterback in high school. He went to Pitt and became a great offensive lineman for them, and was drafted in the 3rd round by the Redskins. But if I'm laughing because it's so far in the rearview mirror. But if Brian Mitchell was not available to play quarterback, and Mitchell was a college quarterback, he played at in Louisiana Monroe and was a good player there before transitioning to running back and kick returner here. But if Mitchell couldn't play quarterback, Russ Grimm, who at that point had to be pushing 300 pounds. His playing weight was listed somewhere around 280. Russ never was really a svelte offensive lineman. He's in the Hall of Fame. But, yeah, Russ Grimm would have played quarterback in that game if he couldn't go. So I just wonder, who would have been the 3rd-string punt returner if Sanderstill couldn't do it. Somebody texted me Biotish, the center. Don't laugh. Maybe that's where he was on the depth chart. You never know. All right, a lot of talk about officiating. I was not up to see this, but this was the end of the Philadelphia-Detroit game last night, by the way, where the Lions scored a total of 9 points, not 3 field goals. They missed an extra point, but after scoring 44, where they could have scored, it seemed like 64 against Washington the week before. Against Philadelphia, they wind up with 9. So Lions are up. The Eagles are up 16-9 with 1:47 left in the 4th quarter. Jalen Hurts throws an incomplete pass to A.J. Brown on 3rd and 8, but Lions defensive back Rock Ya-Sin was flagged for pass interference. This is how it sounded on NBC last night with Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth, and there's some delays there where they're looking at the replay. But wait till you hear what Collinsworth had to say about the call that was made on that play.
And Hurts throwing right side, incomplete, and a flag. Flag for the contact with Rock Ya-Sin. And pass interference has been called.
Interference, defense number 23. Ball Spencer's final foul. First down.
That should just about do it. Let's watch it here on AJ.
Oh, come on. Come on. That is terrible. That is an absolutely terrible call that it's going to decide this football game.
There's another replay here.
If anything, it's an offensive push.
Eagles try to manage the clock here and close it out. Barkley inside, 4-0. Lions will take their final timeout with 1:42 to go.
I said an offensive foul. You want to call a foul, it's an offensive foul. Wow.
Yeah. So Eagles, instead of having to punt, as you heard Tirico say, that they handed off to Barkley for one play. The Detroit Lions used their last timeout, and they were able to run out the clock instead of having to punt. Now, there's no sure thing that Detroit is either able to tie the game or even win the game if they go for two, having scored only 9 points all game. But still, just a terrible call. If you look at it, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's as bad as the call that went Washington's way yesterday, pass interference on an uncatchable ball. I mean, it was a terrible call that was made that favored them. Didn't help them win the game, but it was a bad call. And so, you get back to the question of how do you do this? Because instant replay has changed a lot of things, replaying calls that you get to see things that you didn't see before. HD TV, I think, has changed a lot of things. The clarity that you get on each replay, plus all the different camera angles. Used to be, especially a game like this, a primetime game where they have more cameras that you can see more things. Just an awful call. And they wring their hands every year what to do. The coaches turn the plays over to the league. The league looks at it. Yeah, we screwed up. Sorry. There's got to be a better way. And with all the technology that's available, you don't want to have, because this is coming up in baseball now where you get the call challenge, and is that going to lead to complete robo-umps? I don't know. But with the technology that they have with cameras, and every single NFL game is televised with many, many cameras, could we get to a point where the referees become sort of irrelevant there, that you could almost have a camera on every single player and have a bank of monitors and a bunch of replay officials watching each one? I don't know, but it's got everybody worked up. Here's Collinsworth, not a hot take guy, skewering the refs for a call that may have decided the game. Detroit still had work to do at that point. If they punt to them, there's no guarantee against that Eagles defense that they're going to be able to punch it in the end zone, since they've done it only once all night. But still, you took the ball out of their hands with a chance, or the bat out of their hands with a chance to hit a game-winning home run, and they didn't do it. Then you have the college situation. Now, this is Dabo Swinney, the coach of Clemson, a team that was in the playoff last year, was expected to be back. They picked up probably their biggest win of the season on Friday night when they won at number 20 Louisville. They won 20-19 to get to 5-5, and they've got Furman coming up this week, so at least they're going to be bowl eligible this year. But this was Swinney with a lot of whining about the officiating in this game, and this was after a win, and it may be symptomatic of the college game officiating as well.
There's a lot at stake, and there's not consequences. In this coaches get crucified, fined, players get crucified, held to this unrealistic accountability standard, but refs have zero accountability. Well, they do, but it's behind a curtain. They get to go home and drink a beer and get on with their life, and just leave the carnage left behind that affects a lot of people losing jobs. And that system needs to change too. That system needs to change. There's a system of accountability, but y'all don't know anything about it. It's behind a curtain. How dare we have accountability? In the meantime, we got gambling issues going on, people being suspended, all that kind of stuff, right? Yep. I mean, refs are people too. It ain't just coaches and players, and if they're a part of the game, then by God, they ought to be a part of the game. And they ought to be a part of the accountability, and they ought to be a part of the consequences, not just behind some shadowy curtain. No, they ought to have to answer for it. And listen, there's judgment calls and all that, and I mean, we just have to disagree to disagree. But there's also absolute flat-out misses with no consequences. And and you get a shoot. We're allowed to turn in 10 calls. All right, and so we had a game earlier this year that we lost. I had 14 I wanted to turn in, but I only turned in 10. All right. I thought 8 were wrong, but got back. Yep, missed it. 5 of the 10 were wrong. And I mean, these are game-changing calls. Obvious pass interference, not called. That takes you off the field. But, yeah, we just get this will be addressed with the crew and yada, yada, yada. Okay? Yeah, but you ain't there's no public accountability. Ain't none of that. So that's the system. The system needs to change. It needs to be changed. There needs to be challenge opportunity, and we need full-time officials. If you're going to have this type of stakes, it needs to be full-time officials. And everybody should have consequences. And the coaches and the players shouldn't be the only ones that publicly have accountability. That should change too.
Is that you or the school?
I'm sure they'll just take it out of my check, but I think I'm just going to get some pennies and just mail them in a box. That's what I'm going to do. 23 years.
Yeah, well, don't laugh about the pennies. There is a story about that. Doug Moe, when he was coaching the San Antonio Spurs, lost Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Yes, San Antonio was once in the East, and they lost the Eastern Conference Finals in Game 7 to the Washington Bullets. And the Bullets went on to return to the NBA Finals, where they lost in 5 to the Sonics, who they'd beaten the year before. But Moe, after the game, was criticizing the referees, Vanek and Mihalik. I'll never forget that rant. And he said they stole the game from him. The league fine in those days, 1979, the fine for criticizing officials by name and saying they stole the game was $3,000. And the baseline bums, they were famous in San Antonio. They sat at the old Hemisphere Arena behind the basket and razzed the other team and the referee. The baseline bums collected $3,000 in pennies, and they delivered it in a wheelbarrow to the to the front of the building where the Spurs had their offices. That was 1979. So you can joke about pennies. As far as the other whining about accountability, you know what? You make $11 million a year. You're expected to win games. This comes with the territory. Dabo Swinney was one who said, hey, when they start paying the players, I'm out. Nope, you're still there. And this comes along with it. The gambling helps to pay your salary of $11 million. So stop with the whining. The officials have to get it right. Yeah, they do. Full-time officials, that debate has been going on for decades. The problem you have with it is, what do they do during the week? How do you keep them as sharp as you need them to be? How much tape can they watch? How much? These are snap judgment decisions. They know the rules. I don't know what you would do with them during the week. This is not like training a football team where you have them practice plays and you keep them in tip-top shape. Yeah, they should be in tip-top shape, and I believe they have physicals before the season. You don't see many fat referees running around. They're in position to make the calls. I just don't know what you're going to get out of it if you go to full-time officials. The other problem that you have is how much you're going to pay them, and are you going to get the best of the best? These guys have to go through, just like minor league baseball, they have to work their way up. Most of them start like as high school officials. They become college officials. They get graded every week. So spare us the whining, Dabo. And by the way, you're not supposed to have a team that's 5-5 through 10 games. You're not. You're the highly paid coach of Clemson. You've won national titles. That's the level of expectation. You may not have to win one every year, but the expectation is you should be close. And if you have a bad year, you might have 8 wins or 9 wins, not a maximum of 7 this year. So I look at that kind of both ways there. Let's not get carried away with how tough it is to be a coach in this era where the players are getting paid and there's gambling. That's the job. And if you don't want the job, there have been other coaches who have decided that they don't want to do that. Tony Bennett, in his 50s, won a national title at Virginia. Great young coach. If he said, I'd like to have a head coaching job in college, he'd have one tomorrow. He checked out last year. I don't want to do this anymore. So don't whine about your situation. This is the situation. This is what you signed up for. Yes, the referees are supposed to get it right. And the fine that they're going to give you on your $11 million salary isn't going to mean bupkis. But, don't play the victim here, Dabo. Don't play the victim. Your team is 5-5. You're not supposed to be 5-5. And you damn well better beat, I think it's Ferris or Ferrum or whatever. It's a local school. You damn well better beat them this week. Let's just put it that way. The Maryland situation, I've defended Mike Locksley. I know his record is tough to defend. He's 16-41 in Big Ten play since he came back to Maryland as the head coach. This is his 7th year, and it's most likely going to be a losing year. I mean, only a miracle would save that. They're 12.5-point underdogs at home against Michigan on Saturday, and then they finish up at Michigan State. So, more than likely they're going to finish with an 8-game losing streak. They're going to be underdogs in the Michigan State game as well. But Jim Smith, the new athletic director, came out yesterday, first talked to ESPN, and then delivered a statement from the university saying that they are in full support of Mike Locksley, and we are fully committed to giving him, quote, our student athletes the resources and investments necessary to succeed. Now, I would say this. In some ways, this is putting him on one-year notice. This is Jim Smith saying, hey, I've only been here a few months. Like Locksley is committed to the program. It's his dream job. He has coached here several times, has done a great job as an assistant coach, has filled in the past as an interim coach, and he is someone who, really wants to be at Maryland and has proven that. But the record is what the record is, and now what they're going to do is they're going to look at devoting resources to it. So if this winds up as a 4-8 season, just like last year, and finishes with an 8-game losing streak, next year has got to be a lot better than that. Next year, minimum has to be 6 wins in a bowl, and if they don't, then he's out. That's the way I look at it, because this is the athletic director saying, okay, we're going to give you the resources. And we like you, Mike, but at some point we got to start building a football program. And I wonder what my season tickets will do. I don't think they're going to raise them after a 4-win season. If they do, I hope it's not much. But if they do get good, people like me who are buying these tickets, and I'm telling you, they're not expensive if you're interested. I do it because I really like the atmosphere, and I got a 3-year-old granddaughter who appreciates the fun of going to a game and all that stuff. But the reality is that Jim Smith is here to build a football program that is competitive, maybe at some point competes for a Big Ten title, and it isn't a program where you go, whoopee, we're 6-6 and we're going to go to the Mayonnaise Bowl. No, you got to be better than that. But that's how I read this. Okay, Mike, we're not going to fire you now, but next year we're going to give you resources, and we expect better results than a 4-win season. We'll get to more on the Commanders' debacle in Spain as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So ask yourself a question. Did you really think that we'd be approaching Thanksgiving and looking towards the NFL draft? No, this was supposed to be a year a lot like last year, but maybe even better. No, it's gone down the tubes, and what's left of the season is 6, I wouldn't say meaningless games, but in terms of making a run, I mean, they're not DOA, but they're on life support now, and the life support are eventually going to pull the plug. Some questions heading into the bye week. The one I want to know most is whether this game is going to be flexed on the 30th. Damn if I want to stay up till close to midnight on Thanksgiving weekend after a full weekend of eating and hanging out with family. I would like to wrap up my football weekend in time to go to bed, maybe at halftime of the Sunday night game, and hopefully not be watching the Commanders get blown out by what is now the best team in the league, the Denver Broncos. They've won 8 straight. They're 9-2. And they look like they're going to be a factor in the AFC after beating Kansas City yesterday. I don't think the king is dead yet, but the king has been staggered, and we'll see if once we get to playoff time with Kansas City, likely if they get in, we'll have to play on the road. They've always had the nice path, except the year that they got there. I guess they won. Did they win that year when they beat the Ravens in Baltimore? But they're going to have to do it on the road, whereas Denver right now looks strong. And here's another thing that you think about with Denver. Here I am getting carried away with Denver, but if they go deep into the playoffs, I mean, could you see an AFC championship game in late January in Denver where it can snow big time? Could you see an AFC championship game with 3 feet of snow? it's got to be in play, right? You got to think about it. And right now they look like an awfully good team. And man, they got Bo Nix, and Bo Nix was drafted in the same draft as Jaden Daniels. I don't have any Jaden Daniels remorse. If you think I'm one of those people who say, oh, he's hurt all the time. There's even heard some discussion on Kevin Sheehan's show about fans suggesting they trade him now because he's going to be hurt all the time. No. You got one of them. You ride it out. This year's tough. I think he plays, even though these are going to be meaningless games. I think he's going to play in at least some of the remaining 6. But you got a quarterback. And for however miserable this season feels with 6 straight losses and blowing it again yesterday, stealing defeat from the jaws of victory, you still have the hope of number 5, and the hope that number 5 is going to be great and is going to play for a long, long time. And 5 years from now, we'll forget that he missed some games because of a knee injury and because of a quad injury or groin injury, and now because of a dislocated left elbow. Relax. It's going to be okay down the line. But for now, it looks bad. And Commanders did what they do. They go for it, and they went for it on 4th down yesterday with a chance to kick a field goal. And like he has all season, Dan Quinn has had no regrets on going for it. And the fact that it didn't work, well, that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, I was definitely disappointed not getting it, like at the 1. Felt definitely good going for it in the 4th down op, but, to have those trips down low and to end up with field goals, man, that's the part that we got to be able to count on to get that done. And like I said, that's been a strength of ours. Getting to that spot, we'd actually been struggling in the fringe to get into the red zone, into those spaces. So we'll grow, but I don't have a good insight on it yet, but I will.
The 4th down play, as you may remember, was the pass to Zach Ertz, who slipped. And I want you to listen to this because I have my feelings about this. This is Zach Ertz, longtime veteran, saying, well, I can't use this as an excuse, but, take this for what it's worth. But this was Zach Ertz on what could have been a touchdown in the in that 4th down play, but he slipped.
Yeah, the foot just gave out and it just slid on the turf. Not that it's an excuse. It's just one of those things. Couldn't control. I was going to walk in probably if I didn't slip like that. So play I've run probably 10,000 times in my career and never slipped really like that. Footing was a little bit of a challenge at times today, but can't make no excuse on that one.
Was there any other major issues with turf or anything like that?
I mean, this is the first time we've played here as an NFL game. It was not ideal, and there's a lot of slippage, but can't blame it on the field by any means. But yeah,
it's not ideal. A lot of slippage, but no, that's not an excuse. This is Mariota, who, by the way, said he thought the turf was perfect. He didn't have the opportunity to listen to Ertz when he was talking because Mariota had a news conference and Ertz was just talking to reporters in the locker room. But Marcus Mariota thought the turf was fine. And as for the failure to get it done there.
Sometimes that's the way the ball bounces. And we have to be better in that zone. I think this offense can score a lot of points, but if we're not converting our red zone opportunities, it's tough. Defense played unbelievable today. Made some huge stops. We just didn't convert when we needed.
Yeah, you can say this because Miami had been very, very good in that circumstance, and they were stopped on 4th down. Coming into the game, they had converted on all 13 of their goal-to-go situations into touchdowns. All 13 goal-to-go. And Miami 0 for 2 in goal-to-go situations yesterday. This is from the NFL Network. And there were a couple of very good stands. Bobby Wagner made a great play, knocking the ball away late in the game. I believe that was a 4th quarter. Jalen Waddle, who did not have a big game for them. Jalen Waddle is a great receiver. He had 3 catches for 52 yards, and a great play by Bobby Wagner to knock it away. Javon Kinlaw, Eddie Goldman, Frankie Louvu making that 4th down stop from the 1-yard line, keeping the game tied at 13. I still don't know why Mike McDaniel didn't kick a field goal there. But they did a good job. Miami 1 for 5 in the red zone on that, so there's that. More react from the locker room. Sam Cosmi, again, it's after a loss. Feelings are what they are. But this, I think, is borderline whining. You got to put it into context for sure. But this is Cosme on what it's like to come into the locker room in Spain. Sometimes you lose on the road and you're home in a couple of hours. Okay, that's not the case, but it is what it is.
I haven't really processed it yet, to be honest with you. It was definitely an up and down game, I guess we just found a way to lose. I don't know. That's what it felt like. Couldn't tell you. Perspective. Now we got to stay here for 2 hours all together, wait for the other team to get ready to go to the airport, do their thing, maybe 3 hours, and then get on a plane for 7 hours, and then hopefully get home at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and just sit in this misery right now. So that's the perspective, and that's what the field is like right now.
Okay, well, I understand that you're disappointed, and it's a tough haul, but this is the league now, and the league is printing money, and part of the bigger picture for these international games. And Barry Zerluga wrote an interesting column over the weekend about not just that there's this marketing thing that the NFL's got going on here, and look at all the people that kept their flight reservations and went to the game. From all the social media, I saw the huge turnout of Washington fans for this, and they'll look to be a good contingent of Dolphin fans following a bad team, another 3-7 team. And there's this angle, too, which you have to think about. If you look at the NBA right now, and the number of players who are international stars, and I believe, and I've seen enough of Victor Wembanyama, especially on highlights, he's going to be the next transformational player in the league. He's going to be, in this century, what Michael Jordan was at the end of last century. Will he be as good as Jordan? I don't know. Jordan's the best player I've ever seen. But Victor Wembanyama is changing the game. There's never been anything like this. If you see how you get anywhere near the basket, it's a block. He can jump out and shoot threes and shoot it at a decent percentage. He is such a force, and if he stays healthy, watch out, because he's going to change the game. He's that good. And he's, from France. If he comes along 30 years ago, does he get to this level? Who knows? The Dream Team changed a lot of that. It opened up the eyes to the world of how good basketball can be, and that's where we're seeing some of these players. And as Barry wrote in his column, the last 7 NBA MVPs, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, these guys, Alexander's from Canada, Jokic is from Serbia, Joel Embiid from Cameroon, Giannis is from Greece. These are guys who are top players in the league, and were introduced to basketball, or at least their countries were, by the Dream Team in 1992. Baseball, he says, either the American League or National League MVP, 6 of the last 9 years has been from a player abroad. And the best player in the game right now, and maybe the best player ever, is Japanese, Shohei Ohtani. And the amount of money that comes into baseball from Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers, it's remarkable. And that's why I think baseball is so quick to look the other way for his quote-unquote translator to blow through like $17 million in gambling debts of Shohei's money. And, now we're throwing players out of leagues left and right for gambling. That one got covered up pretty quickly, didn't it? Well, that's because of the cash cow that he is for baseball and the Dodgers. So part of what was going on here, Sam, sorry to tell you, you're a pawn in this game, but this is how it works. You schlep teams across the world, and I'm sorry it's a 7-hour flight home, but that's the way it is. It's a chartered flight. They give you a meal, and hopefully you could fall asleep and get a little shut-eye before you got home. But that's the reality of where where the sport is, as it's chasing international dollars, as if it doesn't have enough of it coming in from other sources, and they're going to get more as time goes on. As for the team, what do you say about this team? The fact that they're 3-8 right now, and they've lost 6 in a row, and Marcus Mariota is your quarterback, at least for the near term, and quite possibly the rest of the year. Here's his look at the abysmal record at this point.
All these trials and tribulations that we're going through, I think ultimately is going to build us better. And we just have to kind of take it on the chin. It is what it is. We're not where we want to be. But the only way that we can dig ourselves out of it is learning from these mistakes and learning from these games, and I think we will.
At some point, do you stop learning from losses? I mean, isn't one or two enough? Do you need all these losses to learn? I don't know. You hear that a lot. I mean, really, what else are you supposed to say? You're supposed to say, yeah, it was totally useless. We lost the game. What can we do? Maybe you could. I don't know. This is Quinn, Dan Quinn, who's very successful with a lot of phraseology last year, the brotherhood, and the various things that he would say to tell you about what the team was doing. Now it's Toiletville. And what do you do with a dead team walking with 6 games to go?
I think I'm just going to keep battling. That's kind of the attitude that I take to say, where do you find the space to get better? And, that's what you dig into. So I thought there were strides, man. And so, that's what I want to see. I don't like 1 step forward, 2 step backs, but I'm just going to continue to try to put guys in the right spot to go do their thing, see if we can tighten up the things that need it, a foul or a false start. Those are ones that can be handled, John. So we got to get that done. That's what we intend to do. But yeah, it's frustrating, but that's part of pro ball, figuring it out and dealing with things that come up and finding guys in new spaces and seeing how we go give ourselves the best chance. So going into it, I liked the op that we had at the half. Okay, it's here to go get it. So not getting it done, John, that's probably the thing that stings the most.
Yeah, I mean, a win would have been a temporary feel good. I would not have put them on track to be a playoff team. And even though they're not mathematically out, they're out at this point, and it's just a question of what the final record is going to be and what the draft position is going to be. Just a quick look at the schedule. Again, they will decide tomorrow whether to flex out of this. I hope it happens. But right now they're scheduled to play Denver on the 30th on the Sunday night game. Then they go to Minnesota the following week. Minnesota fighting for the playoffs. They play at the Giants, and even though the Giants are having a season as bad as theirs, Jackson Dart could be back for that game, and they may. They've got an interim coach, but that's a game I think the Giants are looking at. At least we could win that. Then they got 2 with Philadelphia, 1 here on the 20th. That's a Saturday. We don't have a time for that yet. Then the Christmas Day game against Dallas. I mean, yeah, it's 2 bad teams, and maybe you might say Netflix wants to flex out of it. Doesn't matter. Cowboys could be 0-12. They draw eyeballs. So that's still a go for Christmas Day at 1 o'clock against Dallas at home, and then they finish the season at Philadelphia on January 4th. And the only thing you could say about that game is the way the Eagles are going, they may have everything clinched, including home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they may rest a bunch of people for that game, even though they would have a bye the following week. So of the 6, I would say maybe there's 2 winnable games there. Maybe they beat the Giants in New York, and maybe they beat the Eagles at the end of the season. Dallas, whether Dallas is good or bad, they usually have their number, and Dak Prescott feasts on Washington. So, Christmas Day could be another down, another lump of coal in your stocking. But that's what remains of a season that began with the promise of, hey, we got close last year. And no organization in the history of sports has ever fooled itself more into thinking that it's better than it is than this one. And this isn't on the new regime, because they've only been in charge here. This is their 3rd year, and really the first year they took over just before the season started, so you can't lay it on them. So really it's their 2nd year, and it's been 1 great year and now 1 stinky year. But over the course of time, no organization has ever fooled itself into thinking it's better than it was, starting with 2000, and maybe it happened before that too, but in the 2000 season, after Dan Snyder took over a team again late, he didn't buy the team until May, so he couldn't really, his draft was over and free agency was over at that point. But that team won the division in a year where everybody got hurt. Donovan McNabb got hurt for Philadelphia. It was a down year for Dallas, and they won the division, a very weak division in the 1999 season. And Snyder said, ho, 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 here we are. And he saw all these free agents that he'd heard of watching SportsCenter, and he went out and overpaid for a washed-up Deion Sanders. He overpaid for Bruce Smith. He brought in the cancerous Jeff George. And they did start 6-2, but they finished 8-8. The Fortune 500 Redskins cost a fortune, finished 500. And that was a year where they fooled themselves into thinking, oh, we're really close. We won the division. Yeah, but the division sucked. And then you beat Detroit at home, and Detroit was a shell of a team, too. They were 8-8 with Gus Frerotte as quarterback. So, I don't think they really fooled themselves into thinking they were contenders this year. I thought, they looked at the roster and thought if Jaden Daniels, takes a step up from last year and everything goes right and they stay healthy as they did last year, they might have a chance. Well, that's completely gone out the window. Daniels just among the wounded, with John Keim pointing out that of the starters going into the season, 10 of them did not play in yesterday's game. Basically, half your roster of starters did not play in a game in the middle of the season. As we say, it is what it is, and we'll find out what Dan Quinn has to say today. I'm most interested to find out about Jaden Daniels and the game plan for him for the rest of the year, and will we see Terry McLaurin, who, again, was counted on heavily, got the big contract extension, told everybody, hey, I don't get hurt. 5 straight years without missing a game. Now he's missed 8 of them. So that's where we are. Bram is back from Madrid. He's coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.